Hello everyone, and I hope that you are all doing well. So this is a video about entry adaptations. Now, the reason why I'm doing this video is after doing the journal reviews this weekend and just thinking about uh, all the previous journals that I've done in the past, and from observing in the Discord, a lot of the problem comes from actual execution. Now, it's either the actual execution process of using MT4, MT5, CTrader, whatever your platform you're using, or it's the fact that we're trying to be too perfect. And in terms of the second point, that's the only one that I can address, because the first one, I can't change the speed that you enter and whatever. That comes with time and practice. But in terms of the second one, in terms of trying to be too specific and too perfect, that's on me, and for that I apologize. I didn't realize how detrimental this can be for many of you, because a lot of you have the skill and the ability to take trades and find brilliant opportunities, but are struggling to actually execute because you're trying to be too perfect. And that is a direct result of what I've taught you guys, because everything that I've taught you is all about us trying to be as specific and rule based as possible. However, what I realize is if we're being too strict and if we're trying to be too refined, we tend to miss a lot, including myself. And there also is an element of greed which comes with smart money concepts as well. Even myself, having ever since using 0. 0.5 stop losses, I don't feel I sort of pull back on using 1 pip stop losses purely because I had a taste of that 0. 0.5. However, what I realized is that I am missing a load of moves purely because I'm trying to be too perfect. The problem is we can't be too perfect in the market, and because of it, it's preventing us from being consistent. Now I'm at the point where I am happy. I can happily trade with whatever stop loss I have. It's just the fact that I know I can use 0.5 stop loss. So there's something within me that is limiting me. But I need to accept the fact that I'm missing moves because I'm being too greedy, I would say. But the problem is obviously because that's my approach, and obviously that's what you've been taught throughout the course. I want to give you different ways that you can enter, which will hopefully allow more of you guys to start actually executing your trades. Because a lot of the time, some of you have amazing analysis, and then as soon as it comes to entry, you tend to mess up because either price swerves your POI, you're trying to be way too refined, or again, as I said, you're just trying to be as perfect as possible. But trying to be too perfect is going to be a major limitation for a lot of us, especially to achieve any form of consistency. However, there's some of you who are struggling with consistency but don't have what am I trying to say? So there are many of you that are struggling to find any form of consistency but are still aiming for these crazy risky rewards. And it's not a problem to be ambitious and to have goals such as that, but what I suggest doing, and in terms of getting that comfort into actually executing and actually taking trades, is finding a way that you can confidently execute and pull consistent profits from the market. I think my strength in trading comes from the fact that I am comfortable with losses. I am comfortable with losing money, because at the stage, especially when I was learning, I always had a consistent income coming in. So trading was never a burden. It was never not a burden, but it was never something that I had to achieve, for example, in order to be consistent. And I know there was a massive difference between when I was in uni to when I qualified and started working, regardless of what my salary was. I mean, it wasn't great at the start, but I still had something coming in, so trading didn't have to work out for me. But I think what it is, once you have that sense of security, you can tend to be a bit more relaxed and loose in how you actually go about trading. The problem with the problem that comes with trading is that a lot of you would join and you would have some sort of financial stress on you. I mean, everyone has some sort of financial stress, but you're banking on trading to be, the thing that's going to pull you out of it. And trading can get you out of any of those financial problems that you have, but you still need to be realistic with what you're expecting. And what I mean by that is, a lot of you can pull consistent 1 to 5s, 1 to 10s, but you're not seeing the growth of that because you know that this strategy and this edge can give you so much more. And that is a hard thing to grasp in terms of accepting what some of you would consider as a low risk to reward. But what you're failing to accept is, and are failing to appreciate, is that these risk to rewards is what compounds your account. And what I'm suggesting is compound your accounts, okay, for the time being with whatever risk to reward that you can gain, and then think about having the bigger risk to rewards and think about being more refined and so on. There is no need to be too, there's no need to be too harsh on yourself, because it's hard to see many of you are struggling with consistency, and I feel like this is probably one of the biggest issues, and that is trying to be just way too refined. So hopefully I'm gonna show you some ways that we can start entering trades a bit more relaxed and hopefully easier for you. I know James does touch on this, because I know the way that he enters, he's a bit more relaxed in terms of the position of his trades. He's not really too fussed about how close to the edge of an extreme he is. As long as he's in the trade with a valid stop loss, he's happy. Whereas I like to be very precise with my entries, which was also a limitation of mine. Okay, and I think your strength will come when you fully accept that this is a weakness, and this is a limitation in your progression. At my stage, it's still a limitation, but I'm not banking on I'm not I'm not desperate for pulling trades out here and there. I'm happy to be as precise as I need to be. However, what I realize is, especially as of recent, I'm missing a lot of trades because of this problem. So it may be an adaptation that I take on going forward as well, just so I'm more involved. But I think I still follow the same process. Now, let's talk about a few entry types. I'm not going to talk about any exact models or anything like that as such. I'm just going to give you guys sort of a blueprint of different ways you can enter, and then it'll be down to you to forward test or back test, whatever you wish to do, or even look back at your previous trades that have swerved you or trades that you've taken and see, think about how you felt during those trades. Were you anxious, anxious, nervous, whatever, or were you confident taking that trade? Were you confident actually executing, and so on? So let's think about it this case. So in terms of, let me draw a scenario out. Okay, say that we've just entered the POI. Forget about the model or what type of, forget about the model of entry at the minute. Let me do this so I don't cover up. So say that price has just entered the POI, okay? And now what we have is we have a bearish breaker structure, and immediately what we're going to do is try look for the extreme and try find an OB within that. Now what we need to understand is that what creates an OB is not just is not just that candle. That candle is a refinement of what an order block actually is. What we need to appreciate is the fact that it is this whole buy move, right, which created this sell. So this was basically the manipulation which caused that down move. So essentially the mitigation that we are looking for needs to happen anywhere between this low and this high, right? So that basically that's our bullish range, right, before our bearish break. Now what we will normally do, as I said, is we'll mark out the OB at the extreme, and say if we're going to enter this way, we'll place our entry point going from here and then targeting whatever low it is there. Okay, that's our normal way of entering. However, what sometimes happens is this price comes into that range and then carries on without coming to our refine point, and at this point we get pissed off and we get so frustrated that we keep swerving, trades keep swerving us. And the problem with that this causes, it causes a negative effect going forward. And I think that's what I didn't appreciate in terms of the difference between myself, James, and you guys, is the fact that if this was to swerve me, it wouldn't bother me one bit. I'll just wait for the next setup on the next day, for example. However, a lot of you want to be involved in trades, and a lot of you want to be involved with trades, but you'll still want to have a strict level of refinement. However, you can be looser with the way that you enter the trades just to be involved, but it doesn't change the probability one bit. And the reason why I'm saying this is because our edge is basically defined by patterns, right? We have set patterns for different edges that we want to play, regardless of the model, whether it's James' model, my model, as in the inception model or the disruption model, whatever model you're using, risk entries, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. If the pattern is there, okay, it's valid to take. It's just how refined we are with our entries, which will which will define us as a trader. Now, if it's the case where you're getting swerved too much and it's causing that psychological battle where you're getting fed up and frustrated, what you can do is appreciate the fact that we are going to be utilizing let's use this, we're going to be utilizing the whole range instead. And what this means is you can enter this way. So as soon as price comes into this range, you can manually execute. And generally, depending on the time frame, and this is what you have to test. For example, if you're using the minute time frame and above, your stop losses probably as a minimum would be 1 pip to 5 pips, right? If you're using the seconds time frame, your minimum stop loss would probably be 1 or 2 pips. So what that means is you can already still work out your lot sizes for your whatever size stop loss you have, but at least you know that you are still going to have a safe stop loss. So for example, normally for me, say if this was the case and I have this refined point, this would give me a 0.5. However, price comes in and swerves, I could have got in this trade, for example, with a 1 pip stop loss and still cover the same high and still got in the trade and made a decent profit on that move. However, that's my problem, was the fact that I'm being too refined and trying to be too specific, waiting for that exact OB to be hit. However, if you're entering within that range with your stop loss above, it can react anywhere within here. It doesn't mean that you're incorrect. It doesn't mean the model is wrong. If it's the case where price comes into the range, you manually execute and price goes on and takes you out, it doesn't make a difference, because even if you're waiting for that extreme point, right, price, and say you enter at the extreme point, price would have taken you out anyway. So it makes no difference. The only thing that will stop you from actually entering this is the element of greed and ego, and whether you can accept the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of risk to reward. And by the way, as I said, by a little bit, it doesn't change too much, as in we can still pull out 1 to 5s, 1 to 10s very easily. It doesn't make a difference. However, we've done it and we've actually entered the trade in a more relaxed manner, and that will improve our psychology going forward, right? So that's one way that we can enter. So just to summarize, what you can do, as soon as price breaks that range, if price pulls back to any part in this range, right, especially from the open, you can just pull the trigger right there with the stop loss above the high or above the low, depending on whether you're buying or selling. Another way that you can do this is, so you have this range, okay, and by the way, what I mean by this range, it doesn't necessarily need to have imbalance or anything like that. Forget about any of that. This is what I mean. It's going to be as simple as possible. You don't need to worry about that. Price needs to mitigate at some point within this range. The only thing we need to remember is our stop loss is going to be covering that whole range, because that range for us is valid at some point. So now that we have this range, now you can either enter at the open, or now you can enter at the 50%. So it gives you a little bit of refinement, should you wish to wait for that, to enter straight off there, pull the trigger, and then go from there. At this point, you might have time to place a sell limit, sorry. and go from there, or just manually execute. Again, you'll have a bit more control about manually executing because you won't worry about price tapping here. As soon as price comes into this point, that's it, you're going to execute. If it goes above, it doesn't make a difference because your stop loss is still covering the high or low, depending on whether you're buying and selling again. Okay, so that's another way of entering. Another way that you can enter, this one may not cause problems, but it may mean that you're going to have to be a bit more loose with your stop loss, as in you may need to be a bit more conservative, and I'll explain why I say this. When we have this range, for example, and say regardless of whether it's rule 1, rule 2, forget about that, but when you come to this range and say that I know that as soon as this structure breaks, so let me move this, as I know that as soon as this low is taken, right, I know that I'm going to mark my POI and place an entry right there. Okay, so I know I'm going to execute at this whole range, somewhere within here, right? So why don't we just execute as soon as it breaks the range? Because it's the exact same thing as price coming back into the range. The entry point will be the same. But what I mean in terms of being conservative is that when you execute, as soon as that range breaks, right, the only problem that will cause is that sometimes your entry might be a little bit lower or higher depending on, you know, how you enter. So say if this is let's see what this range is. This range is a 2 pip range. Okay, so your stop loss, say, would be about 3 pips. Now, to be safe, if you're going to enter as soon as the price breaks that range, just add another pip on or half a pip on, just so you're safe and just so that you don't over risk in terms of your stop loss. Because say, for example, you go for a 3 pip stop loss, which is where it should be, and in terms of if price was pulling back, because you're entering on the breakout. Say if you enter like 0.5 pips lower, the problem is your risk is now added to your risk, because now your risk is going to be 3.5 pips. So if your stop loss hits, you're going to be taken out for 3.5 pips worth of your stop loss. Whereas if you're a bit more conservative, you know exactly what your risk is, and that risk is still measured, and it gives you that leeway. So the way that you can determine whether you can use a 0.5 addition or 1 pip addition is to work out what speed you can actually enter at. Another way you can control this is by simply, as soon as obviously price is creating this range, you're waiting for this break of structure, right, to happen. And say if you're going to choose to enter on the break, you can simply place a sell stop or a buy stop, depending on whether you're buying or selling. I assume by now you would know what a sell stop and buy stop is, but depending on whether you're buying or selling. So in this case, we'll place a sell stop. If you're going to do that, then you can have that security that you can place your stop loss where you want to put it anyway. And again, it makes no difference. If price pulls back, okay, you're going to a little bit of drawdown. It doesn't matter. You're not wrong because the pattern is still present. So it doesn't change your probability one bit. So whether you're waiting for your 2 rules, right, and then you've got this range, we've got this OB. So say that this is what we're going to normally do. From now on, if you're struggling, you can use that whole range as your entry point, or you can use the 50% as your entry point, or alternatively, you can enter at the breakout. It's completely up to you. But hopefully this will take away that anxiety about actually entering the trade. So you've done the analysis perfectly. However, now you need to be comfortable actually executing, and hopefully these ways can give you a bit more comfort about how to enter with confidence. But what you need to remember, your probability is not changing one bit. So you stick to your model and exactly where you're going to enter. Just incorporate these if you're struggling with that. So for me, for example, if it's for example, let's talk about the disruption model, for example. So we have we're in a bullish range. Hold on, that's terrible. Hold on a sec. So say we have a bullish range, a low gets taken, and then a high gets created. So that's a successful disruption. And then what I'm looking for on the lower time frame is for this. So I'm waiting for some sort of disruption to happen, and then a break, and then I'm going to enter here. Now what's been happening for me is that price doesn't always come back, and especially because it's my confirmation is on the 1 second. Price doesn't always come back, but it pulls back a little bit into the range and flies. So for me, I can just enter as soon as price even breaks that range, or as soon as price comes back anywhere in that range, I can enter, and I know, and I'm confident that it won't make a difference in the probability, because it's either going to react here or it doesn't. It either reacts at the open or the actual refined OB. It doesn't make a difference. The pattern is the same, and if it was to take you out, it takes you out. That it won't make a difference whether you entered at the refined point or whether you entered at the less refined point, as in the whole range. And I think this is something that again, it's going to take you guys some time to obviously get comfortable doing this, but what I suggest doing is at least trying it. If you don't like it, stick to the refined method. But again, I'm just trying to give you more ways and more adaptations that you can utilize to hopefully better your trading, because everyone in this group should be consistently pulling profits from the market. We shouldn't have anyone, theoretically, we shouldn't have anyone struggling. But obviously struggles will happen, and that comes between the difference between individuals. But this is something I've noticed, and again, I have to take ownership of it in terms of apologizing for the fact that for teaching to be too precise. It wasn't a direct thing for me to do. It was just more showing you what I do myself. However, hopefully this will give you a different insight and a different outlook to actually how to enter your trades. So essentially what you're going to do is trade exactly the same way, but when it comes to entering, just think about if you can incorporate these adaptations. And what I want you to do is, if you do start incorporating these adaptations, let me know how you get on, and let me know if it's made a difference or if it's totally shit. If it's rubbish, then obviously let me know. I'll get rid of the video. But just remember, your probabilities will not change. In fact, it will increase your it will increase the amount of trades you're actually entering, which I know a lot of you want, without reducing that probability, which is again what a lot of us want. If you're still taking losses in this case, for example, and the thing is, remember, you will still take losses, but if you're taking loss after loss after loss, it's not the way that you're entering, it's your actual analysis that you're doing beforehand, and it's the actual model that you're using. But again, if your problem is execution, this hopefully should break that barrier that some of you may have. And this is more of a psychological barrier more than anything, because the psychological barrier is the fact that for me, it would be ego. Because for me, say if this range doesn't give me a 0.5 stop loss, part of me would be hesitant to take it because it's not giving me a 0.5. But obviously for me, especially the fact that I'm missing so many trades, I should be a bit more relaxed in that case, and this is obviously a good adaptation for me to incorporate. But as I said, we need to be comfortable in addressing our weaknesses, and this is how you're going to progress. Every weakness you have is not a negative. We should be seeing it as a positive and seeing it, how can we improve that? And this for me is an improvement, and hopefully for a lot of you guys as well. But anyway, I won't waste any more of your time. I know I waffled in this video a fair bit, and I hope I got my point across without offending anyone. As I said, I suggest that you just try it, backtest it, or look at your previous trades and look how you could have entered if you entered here. And also, don't be too specific with your risk to reward. Don't worry about the risk to reward. Think about getting that skill and being consistent with it. Get consistent with executing regardless of the risk to reward. Get consistent with pulling profits regardless of the risk to reward. And then once you're in that position of comfortability, then you'll know yourself, where you know you can take it to the next level now, because you're comfortable in yourself, you're confident in yourself, and you're happy to progress yourself now. Okay, but for the time being, if you are struggling, try this and let me know. So hold on, just to summarize before I go. So a few ways that you can enter. I've drawn a lot, haven't I? Hold on a sec. There we go. Ah, no, I didn't do it. Hold on, there we go. Right, to summarize, you have your entry point. What you can do, okay, so the first one you can enter at the breakout. So as soon as the price breaks, with your stop loss covering the high, the stop loss covering the high does not change for any model that you're going to use to enter. The second way you can enter is entering it at the start of the range. And the third way you can enter is enter at the 50% of the range. Then obviously the last one is using our most refined entry point, which is the original way that we used to trade. Well, we do trade. So it's up to you. You either use the breakout, entering at the start of the range, 50% of the range, or using the most refined point. It's as simple as that. And in all cases, your stop loss remains the same. It doesn't make a difference in terms of where the stop loss placement is. The only thing that would change is, so this would be 3 pips, this would be 3 pips, 2 pips, 1 pip, or 0.5 pips basically. Just remember, don't be too greedy, don't let ego take over. Just get comfortable with executing and then think about the risk to reward later on once you're consistent. But for now, I hope you all take care and I hope you all enjoyed this video.